All right, hi, I'm Ann Hunt. Let's see, in 2006, I was appointed by Mayor Chris Coleman to be the Environmental Policy Sustainability Director for the City of St. Paul. A little bit about my background. I was the Executive Director of the Neighborhood Energy Consortium, which is now the Energy Connection. So I did residential energy conservation stuff for 13 years till 2001. I also then right before I started with the city, I worked for Minnesota Environmental Partnership. It's a coalition of about 80 environmental and conservation organizations in the state, and I coordinated lobbying efforts and some of the grassroots lobbying efforts. So I think many of you, or some of you I've worked with before on some of those projects. I always say I know a little bit about a lot of environmental topics, and then I rely on other experts that know a lot more in depth about things. But thanks so much for inviting us today to talk about some of the things, the exciting things that are happening in St. Paul. I admit today I've gone from a press conference with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service on urban bird treaty and migratory birds to doing an interview on the home energy squads. We got 4,000 homes in St. Paul participated in the home energy squads with the NEC. That's where they're retrofitting homes. It's kind of the first step on conservation with compact fluorescent light bulbs. So it was really exciting today. We did the 4,000th home. Cumulatively, they're saving about $190 for each home on electricity. So that's like $750,000 that they're collectively saving. So it's kind of the first step. Tonight, then, I'm coming to here to talk about renewable energy. In 2007, the City of St. Paul and Minneapolis and the state of Minnesota jointly applied for a grant proposal that was solicited by the U.S. Department of Energy looking for Solar America cities. Renewable Energy Society was one of our key partners. Doug was fantastic. Always the Mr. Go-To guy to help out with Stacy Miller with the state of Minnesota, Gail Prest and I, Gail Prest from Minneapolis, myself from St. Paul, Carl Nelson, some of you know from Center for Energy and the Environment. At the time he was with the Green Institute. Really helped us put this proposal in. Little did we know that they were only going to select 25 cities to do that. So what we wanted to look at were what were the kind of policies, financing, public awareness, kind of technology issues, education, workforce issues that might be barriers to really jump-starting solar in the metropolitan Twin Cities area. So these were the 25, and do people all know this already? These were 25 cities that were selected. So we got $200,000 of a little planning grant. We did hire Brian Ross from CR Planning to help us coordinate our kind of activities. So it was really exciting. The Department of Energy only did the 2 years of solicitations, and these were the 25 partners. And it's really been invaluable because we've gotten both kind of the cash to help us do some of the planning efforts, but then we got a technical assistance of about $200,000 that they called Tiger Team money to do some other work. So these were kind of our original partners with it, and as I said, MRES has been one of the key partners along with the state, you know, IBEW, Solar Flow, a number of other organizations, Xcel Energy, and Minnesota Office of Energy Security have been really invaluable. So one of the first successful things that we did, working with a lot of people, MRES and some others were involved with that, was to really look at the 2009 legislature, and were able to help secure $30 million in different incentives to advance solar. I mean, the largest was Xcel's 3-year commitment at $5 million each on the solar rewards. Took them a bit to get off the ground, and I didn't get a check-in exactly on how much they're going to do for 2011. I think last year they did about 1.6. They got started kind of midway through 10. But there was an opportunity for the legislature. Senator Anderson did determine that there was out of the federal portion, the state's portion of the federal stimulus money that was coming to the state, $3 million would be set aside for the 2 cities to do some solar installations. And then they also put about $1 million into solar grants for regional parks. So for St. Paul, we really wanted to, we've been working with Minneapolis and the University of Minnesota and Xcel Energy and District Energy, Centerpoint, and University of Minnesota, a bunch of other partners on a really exciting project we're calling the Energy Innovation Corridor. And this is what the legislation for the $3 million was tied to. We're really trying to make the new light rail corridor, and have people heard about this a little bit? Okay. Well, we're building a light rail. If you haven't been down University Avenue, it's pretty darn exciting. But we really want to make it a showcase of other things, of really green technologies. How can we make sure that we have got new green buildings and energy efficient buildings? How can we really advance renewable energy? How can we really make sure that it's got multimodal transportation options? Like in St. Paul and Minneapolis, we're rolling out the NICE ride, but also electric cars. And so we want electric car charging stations. So for our $3 million, we really worked the two cities we've been working on trying to find high visible public projects that are dispersed along the corridor that we can do some educational, really maximize education and then create some jobs and things. So the money was limited to public facilities. I mean, this picture was, Flannery Constructions is right off of I-94 and Hamlin, already right on the corridor. The bottom picture is Spruce Tree. I think Innovative Power Systems installed that a number of years ago at the Spruce Tree. So there's already been a couple of projects going on, but we really wanted to capture all those visitors that are coming on there and that energy and really make it a national showcase for how could you do urban redevelopment that really focuses on energy efficiency and, as I said, renewable energy and new technologies. So for St. Paul, in Minneapolis, the two of us, I guess we completed about 30 site assessments on various public buildings. We, with Tiger Team money, had some money to do some structural engineering studies. So we did the site assessment, structural engineering. For St. Paul, we've kind of narrowed it down to about 8 to 9 buildings, depending on how much money I've got left over. And then that 1.5 million will leverage about $400,000 in rebates from Excel. So the trick is that I got to get this all done by September 30th of this year. So. It takes us, a long time, and I worked in the nonprofit group. I've only been working in the city for 5 years, but it does take a long time to do things like figure out where can you put the buildings and which ones are the best ones, and then do the site assessments, and then go back and do the structural engineering, and then do the bidding and all that stuff. So we're kind of excited. I think we're going to have 4 projects that are just under 40 kW. Western District Police Station is the picture on the bottom. It's at Hamlin and University Avenue. It's a city police building. We did it, we opened it a couple of years ago. It is LEED Gold. So it uses about half the energy that a typical office building does. It has a white roof on it. It treats 100% of the stormwater on site. So we're going to add a 39.7 kW system onto that building. We're also going to do Rondo Library. That's at Dale and University Avenue. It's a really active library that's there. They'll get another 39.7. A public works building on Dale. It's a little bit off the corridor. I was trying to, have a park and a park and a police and a public works building. We'll do another 39.7. The top picture is an exciting project that we're going to do on the River Center ramp. That is downtown. You'd be looking up at this from the river. So we're going to put about 80 kW PV down the side of the ramp on what would be my right, your right. It gets some shading from the Science Museum building, so that's why it can't go kind of all the way across. That one, Hunt Electric had gotten the bid on doing that project. So we've also, and then we're going to do, out of that money, we're going to do a little 10K or 7.75 on St. Anthony Park Rec Center. Innovative Power Systems is going to do that. Then we're going to do the Science Museum. The city of St. Paul owns the Science Museum, so we're going to do a little 10 kW project for the Science Museum on one of their flat roofs outside the Elements Cafe. And then out of the first $1.5 million, we are going to do one solar PV charging station. It's on a state parking lot at 14th and Jackson, so right off the light rail. So it'll be probably about a 3.6 kW system that hasn't gone out to bid yet. And then we're going to, with some other DOE funding, we're going to do 2 more solar powered electric vehicle charging stations in parks. We've got approval from the neighborhood in Como, so one's going to be located near the Lakeside Pavilion in Como, and we're still working through the neighborhood issues to have another one. So those electric charging stations haven't gone out to bid yet. And then the bottom picture here, so that's, the top picture is kind of Westwood Renewable, I should have said, we hired them to help us do all the bid specs and design work on it. And so we've been kind of working through some of the neighborhood issues. with it. This is some renderings that we're thinking about for Como that kind of, the bottom decorative, captures some of the design elements on the historic Como Park Lakeside Pavilion and stuff. So they'll be in an existing parking lot on the island, on the, as I said, near the Lakeside Pavilion. The bottom picture is Jim Giebel, our energy coordinator, who's out sick today, couldn't come. But he's standing on the Dale garage, the Dale building, with our partially installed solar system. Because of the shutdown on the 30th of September, or June, excuse me, we had to stop work on the projects. So it's federal money. It can't be used to fill the budget hole, but it did pass through the Office of Energy Security of the Department of Commerce, and so we were told we couldn't go forward on the projects, which is a big drag because it's stimulus money, and I have 7 projects that were awarded to 4 different contractors who would really like to work. So we've also, City of St. Paul right now, we had gotten another $150,000 grant to do a solar thermal project on our new Como pool. So that one's underway. So those are some of the exciting projects that were kind of going on in the public projects. I didn't really, I realized, Laura, that I didn't really talk about the solar thermal projects or some of those other things that we've been working on with renewable energy. We've been really excited to partner with Renewable Energy Society on doing some solar thermal workshops in St. Paul for residents. So we've been really encouraging them as they think about moving down the continuum, getting the energy efficiency stuff, then can they move into some more renewable. So it was kind of a nice partnership with Renewable Energy Society to be able to host these workshops in St. Paul and Minneapolis and get some of our residents interested in that, and really wanted to make sure that we weren't leaving any of the rebate money for solar thermal on the table. Wanted to make sure we're using that. I know Dustin Dennison did some projects in St. Paul and some others, I'm sure. So one of the other exciting projects that Nina's going to talk about a lot was we did have the 25 cities had an opportunity to just apply for a special pool of stimulus money that was just eligible for solar projects for those 25 cities. And so that was, the top picture is when we were awarded some money, the idea was, and Nina's going to talk about this, so it'll segue in, is how can we do solar market transformation with a large solar thermal project in St. Paul. So that was really exciting to get that competitive grant. So that's my quick overview. I'm going to be around. We'll let Nina go in because she's got a lot more to say than I do. So we'll transfer here. But you can always get a hold of me. Let's see, Nina, how do I get your thing up? I guess I could handle one quick question while I transfer.
Please do.
Sound.
In addition to the solar projects, do you have some energy efficiency projects going on? Can you repeat the question?
Oh, the question was on the energy efficiency. I'm sorry, I talked to Doug, and we thought we were supposed to just do solar. Yes, on the energy efficiency project, the City of St. Paul, we got a direct appropriation of about $2.8 million for Department of Energy for a city our size to do energy efficiency in our city buildings. So we've been spending about half of our money went to city operations. So we've been doing, last year in 2010, we got 17 projects done, 7 parking ramps where we retrofitted high pressure sodium lights to fluorescence. We did some park and rec buildings. This year we'll probably get about 20 more buildings done for energy efficiency. So we're doing both lighting projects and changing out controls. A couple of new HVAC systems and some, control systems. We also spent the money on LED streetlights. So if you're downtown St. Paul and the round globe ones downtown we have, a couple thousand of those. So if you're heading like east on I-84 and you're going under all those bridges near the Capitol, it's a much whiter light than the kind of yellow light. Those were LED. So we have a residential loan program too that's for, if you live in St. Paul, we still have loan money, 0 interest financing for energy efficient improvements. Talk to me about that. And then we're also subgranted some money to the Port Authority to do a commercial energy efficiency project. And then the electric car charging stations and some electric cars is how we've been spending the money. But I could do an entire PowerPoint on that. So I'll cut it off. Sure.
And why don't
Kathy.
you send that PowerPoint to the legislature, show how much money we're saving by getting rid of
I know. I mean, I didn't bring the figures right off the top of my head. I'm trying to think. On our parking ramps, I think the payback on them is about 7 or 8 months. You know, the River Center ramp where we put where we're going to put the big PV system on it, it cut the energy use by 47%. It's going to save $50,000 a year on it. And the thing that I was bashing my head on the wall with and Jim was with our kind of ramp managers about getting them to do this stuff. Center for Energy and the Environment did the audits. Excel had some attractive rebates, but they were really skeptical about it. And then, but if I known that really I should have been pitching safety in the ramp and customer satisfaction. The color rendition from the fluorescence is just so much better that people can really tell if it's a dark black or a dark blue car. There's no shading spots, those kind of, you know, dark spots in a ramp where, you know, people like me feel uncomfortable then going there at night. You know, if I'd only told them that, you know, customers would feel much safer and much more satisfied in the ramp, then they wouldn't have cared. They would have done it right off the bat. So, yeah, but it is saving us a lot of money. I think we'll, you know, on our park and rec buildings cumulatively, it'll be, you know, about, I don't want to give a figure. I forgot. I'll let Dina go.
And punt.
I know it. I don't want to give this is like a techie group, so I don't want to give you a figure that I know you're going to
Can I just put an order in that, are you going to be around for her speech?
Yes,
Okay.
I'll stay, yes.
Because if we get time afterwards, I would like to hear if there's any thinking going on at the city about how to latch on to this governor's executive order, you know, to upgrade energy in commercial buildings and municipal buildings, excuse me.
Yeah. But let's do solar unit needs a bunch of time.
Okay, so can I just say that, talk about a hard act to follow. I only did one project this last year and did 800, and apparently she's fighting crime. So I will just, yes, to Miss Ann Hunt and all her good work. That lady keeps me going every day, I will just say, and then she runs away. Hi, I'm Nina Axelson. I'm with District Energy St. Paul. To start out, I'm actually going to have to do something that's a little bit of a trait in my family. We're teaching family, so I have to start with a quiz. How many of you have heard of District Energy St. Paul? Okay, how many of you know us because you know there's something by the Science Museum that we're related to? Okay, how many of you actually know how district energy works as a technology? Okay, only a couple more. How many of you knew we did a solar project? How many of you thought it was PV? Yes, okay, good. Everybody wins. That was the best quiz performance ever. Okay, just gives me a sense of where to spend a little bit more time versus some other things. I recognize that we have quite a lot to talk about with solar and energy efficiency, and from the approach of what our company looks at, it's really integrated technology, so I'm going to touch on a few different types of things tonight, but of course our crowning jewel right now is this glorious solar project, so we're going to talk about that. So just the quick background for the few of you who did not raise your hand. We are a 501c3 nonprofit utility. It's actually quite a rarity in this country to have that, especially when you're private versus being municipally owned and have that 501c3 status. We are also a gift of the city of St. Paul and George Latimer. Started when the NSP facility was starting to fail, and city and state and federal and private partners all came together, went to Sweden, kidnapped a really awesome guy who came back and helped us design the current hot water system that serves downtown. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that. So we really did start in a public-private partnership, and we've succeeded with that model in the last 30 years. 1993, we brought in district cooling. So talk a little bit more about what that actually means for downtown, but that was a new technology for us to introduce here. And in 2003 is when we became a primarily renewable facility by integrating biomass and combined heat and power. So District Energy 101, there are hot water pipes and chilled water pipes running throughout downtown St. Paul. So we all know that there's a very complicated public infrastructure beneath the city. If you didn't know about it already, you knew about it when light rail started, and you got to see all of the utility Tetris that is happening underneath the ground. So we have hot water pipes, supply and return. We have chilled water pipes, supply and return. Those are actually much larger pipes, and they can't go quite as far as the hot water pipes. Actually, the hot water pipes can deliver energy miles and miles and miles. In Sweden, Denmark, other European countries, these are networked from city to city, almost like large interstates. They don't pick up customers necessarily in the middle so they can retain that energy, but they're able to capture energy from all these different sources and bring it together to where the users are. So we're using that integrated technology here. And a few of the things that this allows, it's an efficiency of where the hot water can retain energy. If you use steam, which is really common in most of the district systems that serve downtown areas, college campuses, a lot of urban, dense user groups, even hospitals, they use steam because of the way the buildings were originally set up in the US. And now there's a lot more flexibility and you can use hot water. In fact, we had hot water here first, we gave it to the Europeans, and now we're taking it back. So, and that just has a lot higher efficiencies for us than the steam does. It also allows for systems like we have with solar. So if you didn't know before, we actually serve a pretty big territory in downtown St. Paul. We have 80% of the heating customer load in downtown. We have 60% that we serve with our district cooling. A little bit on the district cooling side, we serve about 100 customers. We just signed the Union Depot as our 100th customer. We're excited to see what's happening at Union Depot. And we have a large storage tank at Kellogg and up on 10th Street. And so we actually chill water overnight so that we can distribute it out to the grid in the morning. So it helps the electricity grid because we're using off-peak electricity, helps our ratepayers because we're using off-peak electricity, and we have efficiencies that we gain from being able to use chilled water. And if you didn't know this already, they can't use well water as once-through cooling in downtown anymore. So everybody had to get off the well water for once-through cooling, so this was a solution for them as well. So the combined heat and power plant that we have downtown next to the Science Museum, pretty basic concept. We're shoveling in primarily wood chips, 2x2 sized wood chips into our facility. We burn that to make steam. Steam generates, drives a turbine to generate electricity. We sell out to our partner Excel, and this is part of their renewable energy mandates. They meet that by having multiple biomass facilities throughout the state, and we're one of them. So we sell that electricity to them, and then they put it out to the grid. We don't sell electricity directly out to the grid, which is why you can maybe see us generating more thermal projects than we do PV projects. So, and then we actually take that waste heat, which in most electricity generation across the country is just wasted into the atmosphere or into our water, and we're able to use that as the primary heat source. It's about 60% of the heat that goes towards heating downtown St. Paul. So really just a win-win, and we consider, some people consider waste heat an energy efficiency, others consider it renewable. We don't care as long as you use it. It's just a great opportunity, and that's, so this is the view from, I think, Anne's condo. No, maybe from the porch with the, okay. So beautiful view there for the river, and we have been on the river for quite some time with Cogen. That's a little bit newer. And it's great to see everything that's happening with the Great River Master Plan Park, something? Yeah, what she said. So glad to be a part of that. And you can see the large tank up above there as a chilled water storage tank. And then the chips. We get our wood from about 45 to 60 miles of the cities. We really believe in trying to keep that local. If you go out too far, you're spending all that money and carbon on transportation anyway. So you really want to keep it local. It's tree trimmings. It's storm damage, it's construction debris, but it has to be clean wood. We can't take varnished, painted, it's really got to be clean for it to work in the facility. So that's the intro. You guys came for solar, right? All right, I'll try and get to that. So this is kind of our dream system. We don't have all of these components yet, but really by having that base district energy hot water system that we have, that's really the core to what allows us to do all these things. That fuel flexibility you see on the left-hand side, as soon as we get the capability to do algae or to do more waste heat or whatever it is that we can use in this system, we can just tap it into our plant and then distribute it out to our customers. And as much as we'd love to see our customers do PV, maybe urban wind, thermal, et cetera, it's a little bit harder for them to change to use algae in their furnaces and use biomass and these other types of renewables. So using it in a central, we have that fuel flexibility. It also allows us to have rate stability when people are dealing with volatile gas prices. So there are a lot of benefits to doing it this way. We are just hoping that we can add some of these other things in the future. So where does this meet solar? So in Europe, again, actually for once I'm not just saying Sweden. In Europe, you see quite a bit of integrated solar with the district systems there. One, because district systems are more widespread, so it's easier to look at focus and integration. And also because they have these large systems that especially with these fields that they can integrate solar thermal. They run at a little bit lower temperature than ours, so that's also a little bit easier for the integration. They have different economic incentives and carbon markets. Some of the other things that we'd love to see the U.S. move towards so that these are a little bit more viable, but quite easy to find a big installation like this on any district energy system in Europe. And some of these are rooftop projects as well. And then district energy, I actually went to the American Solar Energy Society conference in Raleigh in May, which was incredible, and had more than one person come up to me and said, I would have guessed there were 5 or 10 of these systems across the country. So, and these are the people that we really want to see as a partner in what can happen next with these projects. So for them to see that there are hundreds of these, and we were just up in Canada, and there's actually 6 other projects in Canada that are looking at doing something very similar. So a lot of potential to do something that maybe we all don't see every day. In fact, one of the things that we said to our district energy partners is, well, you complain that nobody can see you because you're underground. Well, if you put solar up, it's a great way to really showcase what you're doing in your city. So I'm going to use the same photo because Ann just, yeah, exactly. The only one where we all didn't have our eyes closed, so this worked out really well. So what we've done, I said before, is all in part to a public-private partnership. We could not have had this project if it wasn't for the City of St. Paul, if it wasn't for the Department of Energy, actually giving us the opportunity to explore something that it can be capital intensive. We do have a small ratepayer base, and to spread out big projects when you only have 200 ratepayers, a little bit more challenging to do things like this. So we did get a $1 million grant through the City of St. Paul, which we matched with $1 million of our money. It's also great to know that 2 years after starting that investment, when we survey our customers, they still tell us that renewables are a priority to them. By far in the majority. It's about 90% of our customers are showing that. So they do support what we're doing in these projects. So they brought this to us with the opportunity to do market transformation. It's about showcasing large projects. It's about bringing thermal back in front of folks so that they don't lose track of this wonderful, wonderful technology that's been here, will be here, still serves us. And to do something higher profile, use it for education, and then show how it can work with district energy, because we really do think the opportunity is there to do dozens more of these projects in the US. So we partnered with TKDA, local firm, and Ramboll, who is a Danish firm, because they had a lot of experience doing these other installations, and said, please help us try and figure out where and how we could do this. St. Paul River Center, thousands of people into that building every day. You can see the roof from inside the Science Museum lobby. You can see the roof from Rice Park. You can see the roof from Kellogg. You can see it from Travelers. I'll probably stop there, but it's a very visible place to be able to do something. And they have huge sustainability goals. They've been working with Ann on quite a few other projects, and they were so willing to come in and host and work with us on the project. So we started design and engineering. One of the questions I get most commonly is, what angle did you put these up at? We put them up at 45 degrees because in the winter, there's really not going to be as much solar capability, and we have quite a bit of backup with our own system. And in the summer, we only have about 10 to 12 megawatts, and you'll have to forgive me, I talk megawatts for heat, but on our system, and we don't need quite as much. So we really tried to optimize for shoulder season. We have a small amount of shading with the 6 rows of panels that we have, but we think it's worth it given what we were trying to do with the budget and the roof space that we had available. So just to give a little bit of a glance of what I'm talking about there as far as how this all matches up. River Center's load is clearly higher into the winter, and once we get out into these other seasons, you can see this is probably not our best graph because this shows a month total. What you don't see is in these months where it's close, pretty much I would say we exported in March. So March through October, there will be days where it's over 45, 50 degrees. River Center doesn't need that solar heat for space heating. River Center doesn't need it for all their domestic hot water. So we take it and we put it on the rest of our hot water grid. So this is thermal smart grid for district energy systems. So we are able to export this out to 200 other customers. Now, not to say that 200 other customers are getting a significant portion of their heat, but again, I said 10 to 12 megawatts in the summer of heat load, 10% of that is coming from this hot water solar thermal system. And we think that's pretty worthwhile. So panel selection, we really searched for about a year to try and find a domestic panel that met our technical specifications. Fortunately, right now, the thermal market is doing well, but it's really aimed towards domestic hot water and pools. So you're really talking about an 80, 120 degree range that works just fine. And that's great for that product and those applications. We need 160 minimum. So we couldn't find anybody that said we can meet these temperatures and sustain them. So we ended up picking a Danish panel, Archon. It's an 8 by 20 panel, and it's got pretty amazing performance, although the technology is really not that different than what we see in some of the other panels we see here. Size alone has been able to minimize the heat losses on these. The reason I emphasize that these are not such strange and unusual panels is we want to see them manufactured here in the US. Since we went live in March, we've got 25 other pending projects. Now, I'm not going to say they're all just sitting there waiting to cut a check, but at least that many that are interested in doing something like this. And they'd like to be able to buy their products in the US. They'd like to buy them in Minnesota. And we've seen interest from some of the local manufacturers to do something like this. And so that capacity is there, but the performance just hasn't been. So again, just the breakdown of the panels, stagnation temperatures were really important. If we didn't invest in the right panel on this project, we never would have seen a payback. We wouldn't have seen performance. And we've looked around and seen large-scale solar thermal projects that started out really great and hit a hitch somewhere technically along the way, and then people stopped paying attention, or people looked at it as another thermal failure. And so we really just didn't want to see something happening like that. One quick story, I know I'm probably running short of time, but these are such efficient panels that we actually had a small dent on the side of one of the panels, and we wanted to measure whether it was having heat losses because of this dent, and did we need to send it back to the manufacturer? One of our engineers took a heat gun, a thermal imaging gun, and was running it across the back of what you're seeing here, and he just kept getting one spot that seemed to be showing heat. Well, we finally figured out it was his own shadow on the back of the panel, and that was the only heat loss that we were getting out of these. So Ray tells that story much better because he got like giddy about it, but it was really cool. And especially, I'll just note as well, here's a guy who came out of plastics manufacturing, came in to work at a coal, gas, wood, combined heat and power plant, and then they put him on the solar project. He went, really? Thanks. And in a year, I literally mean it, he gets giddy. He was so excited to go to Toronto and tell people about this. He loves doing the tours. He is completely and totally an evangelist for solar now because he's seen it just completely work. And it's not that your other projects are not out there and functional. He just hasn't been in the midst of one before. So it was really fun to see that transition. A little bit for the geeks here. We have, again, 2 different penthouse roofs, and there's 144 panels in all. They're basically set up in sequence. So you'll have three rows on the north roof and south roof, and they'll go 5 in a row and then drop down into the system. And so that sequence is just shown here with some of the piping. And I don't know if we have another one of where the pyranometer, do I have a laser? I will shut this thing off if I try. So a little bit just again on the mechanical room drawings. River Center had a lot of space in their facility, but they certainly do a lot of events and they need their space and it's precious. So we really, it was great for them to see that what you're looking at here really is about from the edge of this little wall here just across. So it's about a 10 by 12 space, doesn't take up that much. And actually by doing some of the new mechanical work that we did in this facility, we were able to reduce some of their domestic hot water usage and do other efficiency work on top of some of the other lighting and other work they were already doing. So even just the exploration of solar brought them some savings in their building. So here's just a little glimpse of what that looks like. So the mechanical room up and to the left, that's a large heat exchanger in the blue there, and then there's a row of pumps across. Maybe this is a good time to extend the invitation if any of you want to go check this out. Let me know. We'd be more than happy. Please don't pick a rainy day. But even today, we got up there and shot, and it was great. So, and then these are the surge tanks here. So basically, it's just a matter of the panels themselves and the piping that we have in place can operate as a backup in case of an event. but we also have a little bit of backup in the tank. So this is all that we need to actually take care of. You can imagine how much glycol and how much fluid is running through such a large system, but this is all that we need for tank backup. Just a quick here, as far as how we prioritize what we use. So basically this is a way for us to determine whether our need is in space heating or whether our need is in domestic hot water. So primarily through the summer, we're just going to the domestic hot water heat exchanger. Otherwise, when it's necessary, we can go out through the primary, and then the controls are set up to export once those have been satisfied. So we've also had times where even if the system reads incorrectly on what's going on in the building, it just goes to export. It doesn't shut down, just goes to export. So it's a nice way to make sure that no matter what, every BTU that we're collecting gets used. I guess the last thing here is just the temperature range that we're seeing. We all know it's been a bit of a dreary spring and summer, so we aren't seeing the overall production that we would have liked to see. But on the days when it's even close to sunny today, we literally were on the roof and it was raining, and then it started to clear. And we went down in the mechanical room, and I joked around that on a cloudy day, if it's bright enough that you feel like you need to put your sunglasses on, these things will kick in. Raining, walk downstairs, talking for 5 minutes, system kicks on. So it's just great to see that, I mean, we're not gonna see our 200 plus temperatures on those days, but it really can pick it up and run with it, and that's so fantastic. And then we've been seeing about 210, 215 degrees at a peak here, and we've seen about 1.2 megawatt is where we're seeing for capacity. So finished product, for us, that's a lovely way to see the backdrop of downtown St. Paul. Again, you can see this from the street, which is really fantastic, and this has just been a really neat opportunity for us. I'm going to just skip to a little bit of what's next for us and why I think maybe this is important for everyone else. This is, yes, very unique in being a district energy integrated project, but it's really just a bunch of flat plate thermal panels. And that alone is a great opportunity to teach. So working with the Science Museum, working with classrooms, working with the general public, a lot of folks don't know that a lot of solar thermal projects are not metered, or the performance data is not quite as available as what you see with PV. Makes it hard to teach architects and engineers and homeowners and other people about your benefits. So we have a lot of folks just coming up to us saying they want to see the performance data. We have school groups. We haven't always been able to take people through our biomass plant because it's not the safest thing to be in an operational plant with kids, but now we can bring kids up, we maybe handcuff them on the rooftop. So really this opportunity, exploring what we said with the solar manufacturing and new opportunities, and seeing these projects, which they're, from the city of Toronto to Arlington to Portland to Boulder to San Francisco. These projects, Iowa, I mean, just the list goes on. But also just, we want to be a resource. The Department of Energy and the city of St. Paul partnered with us with the expectation that we transform the market. And I think that's also about education. And so just really my request to you guys is ask us. If we can help, ask us. Let us know how we can use this project to teach the people that you're trying to teach about solar and what can be done and the rest of our system. But even just like I said, we've got groups that are coming up here. They can be right up on the rooftop within the midst of the project. We can teach them about how some of these things work in a mechanical room. We had folks tell us just simply, if someone had brought me into a mechanical room when I was 12, I totally would have been an engineer. This is so cool. So even just little things like that suddenly make, again, district energy a little more attractive than it used to be. But this is our great team from the River Center as well, just getting up there, all smiles. I didn't force it, I promise. Just a great opportunity to really just showcase people and how this integrates with the project. So I think, unless Ann, something I missed? Okay, that's all I got. Do you have time for Yeah, Ann, come up here. They're all for you. Oh, one more geeky thing before Ralph asks about governor's initiatives. So this, I probably won't be able to answer all Ralph's questions. So this is a true St. Paul thing for me. When we were thinking about how to spread the word about the project, we made postcards. And so there's that kind of that pretty picture that was at the front there. We were trying to show how solar can be sexy. We've got just people at work, which we think is a really important part of it, and then the aerial shot. And I'll leave these behind. Mail them to your grandma, mail them to your cousin, put them up in your cube, leave them behind, whatever. That's our little way of trying to spread the word about the story. So, yes, Ralph.
What kind of role do you, I'd just like to have you kind of maybe give a little bit more detail of what kind of role that you think the district energy would is interested in playing, in other projects, as just a coach, or putting financing packages together, or now that you've gone through it, what kind of role do you see for?
It would depend on the project. I would say the general residential realm is probably not really what we do. We serve some single-family residential on our system, but we're not the experts, and we really are good at honoring when we're not the experts. Now, there is a project in Canada called Drake Landing, where they've actually tied together rows of solar across garages, brought them into one tank, and distribute them back out. It is performing ridiculously. It's got underground storage. So if people are developing those types of projects, we'll connect them. These guys are also, the Canadian government is really interested in teaching as well from that. For projects that integrate more than one technology, that's really something that we would love to be a part of. And just generally, we're happy to say this is what we learned. I just don't want to misrepresent us as a new solar expert, because I think I'm sitting in a room full of folks who have more of that installation experience and more experience modeling. We can just say from a large scale, from a thermal, from a district tie-in, we have some lessons that we learned. And call us and we'll see if we're a good fit. We also have a lot of financing experience with projects that we've done at some scale. I understand that looking at most of the new market tax credits will make anybody's brain start to sizzle, and I might know a little bit about those too. So, is that okay? Yes?
What are some of the numbers on your financial or economic performance, like payback, compared to other technologies?
Yeah, I would actually, not to redirect, I will answer the question, but I would have that question back for people in this room. How do you calculate back when we've been going out there trying to look at how are people calculating out, for PV it seems like a much more straightforward formula on how we calculate payback, but for thermal it seemed a little bit more challenging for how we were going to look at it. So what we basically have done is looked at the value of the energy. It's a $2.1 million project. We look at the value of the energy, which is approximately $45,000 a year, plus some of the efficiency savings, so you probably could just round up to $50,000 a year. So you're already in the 20-year range. And that is, again, you can't just look at the natural gas price compared to a BTU that we get, because that gas doesn't burn on its own. It needs a boiler, it needs an infrastructure, has demand charges. So unless any of you are getting a bill that only accounts for just gas and you're burning it without a boiler, you can't compare the two. So we use it as a kind of overall cost there. In addition to that, you have states like North Carolina that have renewable energy credits available for thermal projects. The state of Minnesota does not. There's probably about 8 states now that have adopted a thermal energy credit. And they basically say, we don't care. We want to see renewables. We want to see them in all the sectors. We want to see the sectors work together. So we can actually sell our renewable energy credits from this project to North Carolina. So in doing that, we can bring in additional income. So dropping us even further under 20 years, I haven't got it completely right, but it's somewhere between 15 and 17. The last thing I would just, again, wait to hear feedback from you guys, but I don't think natural gas prices are going to do this for the next 20 years, and I plan on having this system for the next 20 years. So at some point, we have to account for the fact that the solar isn't going to cost me anymore, and the gas is. So we have to just remember to revisit our projections on these types of things. So I'm more than happy to just be humble and say, sure, 16-year payback, that's pretty darn good. But maybe it's better. Yeah?
What's the life cycle of your panels, 20 years or
I think that's probably putting it low. So we see projects in Europe that flat plate, same type of technology, 25, 30 years old. In fact, our former president of the company had installed them in Sweden before coming over here, and he's wondering why it took us so long. But so they can last quite a bit. Most of the ones that get replaced are because, I'm sure, again, things that you guys have seen here where it's just some sort of damage from an external source. But project cost-wise, the panels were only 15% of the overall project cost. If I needed to replace all those panels in 20 years, and that's the only thing I had to replace to move forward, we probably would have to do some heat exchangers and other things. But that steel was the most costly part of the project, and I don't plan on replacing that ever. So, yeah. Oh.
Just to follow up on Jan's question, do you, actually it's what you said about selling credits.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have to use something like MRES, which is used for electric powered documentation?
I'm not familiar with MRES, so I don't know.
MRES, Renewable Energy Tracking System.
We've not gone into negotiation. Again, we've only been up and running since March. The offer for credits came in May, so it hasn't been negotiated. So, but we have a full performance tracking system with our district energy system. So we have moment-to-moment data on the project.
Really, one of the things that will make the market for solar thermal is if we did have a tracking system that we could use, but then we have to have the data acquisition and the documentation.
Right, and we plan on actually, for most of this, plan on just publishing it. So this Drake Landing project in Canada, I would really recommend checking out. It's a really neat project. And they've got great tracking on their thermal output. And it's, we're going to try and actually model how they've done their websites and how they've done some of the performance modeling. So we already have data collection. It's about picking data points and making them available. So we have more than we need, but yes.
Just a comment, Dan, you said, personally, I like to see among other measures life cycle costing, like cost of the other PTU or a lot over the life of the system. Because like you said, it's, people don't, they might just look at fuel in some systems and other systems just look at equipment. You just look at everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just encourage you to keep that data, and if you can have it, it should be interesting.
Okay. Well, we do owe the Department of Energy a report, and that will be part of our report. So we'll certainly make that available. Want to proofread? Okay. 7. Okay. Yes. Good.
So you guys did the 8 structural reviews for the Make Mine Solar program for the solar thermal projects. Do you know that report? Have you gotten that report yet? No.
So soon, I realized I forgot to ask Brian about that before I got here, but hopefully we can get that to you soon.
Have you seen it? No.
I haven't seen the draft yet, no.
Okay. Check.
But I'm not the technical person,
Yeah.
but, Diana.
I have a question for Ann. So, you said that you had an additional $150,000 for a solar thermal pool at Como. Where did that additional, is that some of the ARA money? Where did that?
Oh, I'm sorry, it was, it was federal stimulus money that came to the state of Minnesota that was for solar projects on regional parks. So for St. Paul, I think we got, the first one, we got a little bit of money to do some solar wayfinding signs. I think it was $25,000 or $35,000, and then we got the $150,000 for, the new pool that we're putting in at Como Park, which is a regional park. Trying to figure out the grant proposals and what projects fit on it. Like the stimulus money, you can't use it on zoos and aquariums and, golf courses and some things like that. So, I could have done maybe some solar PV charging stations for the golf carts at the Como pool or the Como golf course are failing, but they wouldn't allow it, So I'm always open to finding other creative ways to finance projects, but. Sure, Chris, over there.
Do you know, Ann, of townhome associations that are actually doing solar in the
city?
area or state?
Let's see. I know Minneapolis did the the Wellstone apartments in Minneapolis that they did. They were some affordable units, housing units. In St. Paul, we have a twin home, so it's two side-by-side homes that NEDA did, the Neighborhood Development Association on the west side did. I know I've had a number of inquiries from some condo owners and things, whether they've actually, gotten you all out to do site assessments and some stuff, I don't know. I think the multifamily does present, I assume that's what your point is, I think the multifamily does present a good opportunity for both PV and thermal for these, where you might be driving the cost down. I mean, our costs on the commercial projects were really, really competitive for the projects that we're doing, on the Western District Police Station and some of that.
Just as a follow-up, is part of that because of association limitations?
Yes.
Because I would just note there is a project out there with the Race to the Rooftops.
Oh, yeah.
It's just being kicked off by the Department of Energy. I don't know much about it, Race to the Rooftops. I know the title. What they're looking at investing in is what are the other policies that are keeping projects from getting to the rooftops. So is it state policy? Is it renewable energy credits? Is it permitting? We hear a lot that it's permitting, and what are the barriers there? And why not say, and you know what, it's my association, and they need better coaching, and they need restrictions lowered. And I would say let's try and figure out a way to link that into the mix.
I think the two cities were looking at trying to partner with some folks to apply for that proposal, mostly to try to tackle interconnection and net metering issues, but doesn't mean couldn't be bigger. The gentleman in the yellow shirt had a question.
I just wanted to ask, you had mentioned some of the, public works side or the public buildings that you're working on. What's Sustainable St. Paul doing on the residential side, solar-wise?
Well, our focus has been on the efficiency stuff. We haven't had any really projects on the residential other than the little one that we partnered with you all, Renewable Energy Society, on promoting the solar thermal projects. Doesn't mean we wouldn't maybe necessarily, but we've been really, really focused on the energy efficiency stuff right now. Yeah, I know it. I mean, it is kind of scary when you drive down to or St. Paul, in the winter, and you see the ice dams hanging off the roof, and you're like, oh yeah, big bypass. I don't even need an infrared camera, and I'm not the technical person. Sure, Ralph.
Well, I just wanted to note that Greg Palmer at Excel Energy has offered a custom rebate for solar thermal, commercial, industrial scale solar thermal systems. I know he's leaving Excel now, and so that's one of the things I think we all could, maybe do as sort of politely inquire at Excel, if that is still, if there's somebody.
If they're still there, yeah. I don't know the answer to that. I am worried, though, that we got to really sell solar PV to make sure that they keep the solar rewards program going. They've had it for 3 years with a 5-year commitment, and we've been a little bit undersubscribed. So, and I know it's the economy. It's not that, installers aren't out there trying to sell it, but we really need to do that. I mean, the cities of St. Paul, Minneapolis, we worked on, for residential PV, kind of an easy permit form so that, it'd be easier for installers to be able to know what they need to do to get the permits. We need to do the same thing for solar thermal and for some of the commercial projects, and if people have a freestanding, array system and stuff. But we're really trying to streamline that stuff. For St. Paul, our permitting folks unfortunately don't get that many solar projects, so they don't always remember, so it's nice for them to have a little checklist and check that off. So we're trying to work on shortening that timeline up. Oh, another question from Diana?
Yeah, so, market transformation, solar America Cities, you guys are doing all these different projects. You're doing one big project, and you're doing all these different projects.
She's trying to find some more big projects.
Yeah, we'll figure something out.
This decade, I will do one more project.
Wait a minute, it's 2011, guys.
Yeah, no.
So what have you found, besides like city bureaucracy or something, is the biggest barrier to really getting broader adoption? What is the biggest barrier?
Ooh, I know.
And you can both answer this. Okay.
I bet it's different answers. My answer would be that people don't understand energy. What baffles me is when we go in and go into other cities. We consult a little bit in other cities around the country, and just flabbergasted. And people come to us who I expect to know what they're doing and ask these questions, and thank goodness City of St. Paul has it together. But I think people don't understand it. People are very much locked into their sectors. I think there needs to be more crossover planning between transportation, electricity, and thermal. It shouldn't be trying to compete against each other. I think it should be more integration of technologies versus technologies cannibalizing each other. Okay, I'm done.
Wow. Plug in Nina and I seem like low key.
And this is me off coffee. Can you imagine?
Not.
Yeah, I'd say people don't know about energy. I mean, I admit I have spent a lot more time in the energy efficiency pieces, and people don't get it. I mean, we told you, we had like grant managers that were really skeptical. They thought CEE was making up the numbers. And, the one guy calls me and says, this energy improvement that we're doing in this ramp is saving $2,000 a month. And I said, well, CEE said it was going to save $24,000 a year. And they're like, and he's like thinking that they're making up the numbers. So I do think that there is this skepticism a little bit with both energy efficiency. About solar and energy efficiency, there's a little skepticism that it's really not going to have the paybacks and be worth the investment that people think it is. We've been in St. Paul, and part of the Solar Cities project was to kind of combine energy efficiency and solar, because we keep thinking the solar will make the efficiency more sexy, and the efficiency stuff brings, the solar costs down and makes it more cost effective. So we really like that kind of partnership, but it is educating people about their energy uses. I think that, it is hard. Right now, the economy, is hard too. We've got a zero interest financing for attic insulation, sidewall insulation, and furnaces, and we still haven't been able to get rid of all the money. So it's money that residents and homeowners in St. Paul can do that's payable when they sell their house. What better deal is that going to be? And we still have had people unable, and it doesn't have any income restrictions on it, and people aren't taking the money. But they would redo
The commercials, I think that's gonna make people really interested. I love that, because has everybody seen this, where every single little electric device you have has a gas motor and has smoke coming out of it? Your iPod.
It's
people
great.
Walking on, it's awesome. It's great. Because all of a sudden it makes it real for people. Oh my God, all these things use electricity and cause pollution. It's an awesome commercial.
But Ann makes another good point about we all have this assumption that renewables are something we sacrifice instead of the economy. And yes, there's been a huge jobs push, but someone asked me the other day we were actually just talking about what was happening in federal government and what's going on. I shouldn't even go there, but what are the stable economies? And I went, Sweden, hello. And look what they're doing. They are 70% renewable thermal. They're 45% renewable as a country. And their economy looks pretty darn good. So that's a lot of stuff.